have been pleasantly surprised, and we can look at the series layout now to give you an idea of what we're going to be seeing on our screens here today. And when we look at the first two, Jersey, I think this is the best start Sentinels could have asked for. They've been flawless on Capture the Flag throughout qualifiers and throughout the tournament so far, and Slayer Aquarius, a very strong one for them as well.
And you mentioned flawless, and that's exactly what Sentinels were going to need to be. But FaZe Clan yesterday, they didn't start off as hot as maybe we anticipated. They were expected to be this God squad coming into things, and unfortunately, they started off a little bit too slow.
Maybe a little flat in terms of what we would expect and what they would expect as a team, but that's always going to happen. And sometimes maybe that early loss of a map will just start to boost you into actually playing the way you should be playing. But I don't think they will be fazed by it, and I think that Sentinels will look to try and maybe take advantage of this hot start possibility. Capture the Flag Empyrean, they have played very successfully, not just throughout qualifiers, but also at LAN. They know how to do this map. They know when to push their advantages. And if they can start to snowball, if they can start to get the power-ups and the power weapons, they can certainly pummel FaZe into the ground here.
Well, it all comes down to this then. Former teammates collide in our winners quarterfinals. A game one. They're all too familiar with this one. Empyrean CTF. But Dan, I think there's an opportunity here for us to talk a little bit more about records and statistics, and perhaps why you think there's more of a chance here for Sentinels to get the win.
I think it's when you look at Sentinels and all of the players on the squad and what they do when it comes to Capture the Flag, everyone has been playing a part. The desk were talking about it on the side of FaZe, maybe a little bit too much objective work is being relied on when it comes to SnakeBite. And sure, SnakeBite, one of the best objective players that we have in the league, but you've got to be able to pick things up around him as well, and everyone needs to be doing their bit. And I will say, I think Sentinels are doing that. Sentinels are finding those players to make sure the flags are being grabbed, the flags are being moved, everyone's playing their part in getting the rockets if they have to. Kuhlect has been the standout for me on Sentinels when it comes to his objective work, and considering how good a Slayer he was as he was up and coming and rising through those ranks, he's kind of taken maybe a new role on a little bit. And when you've got someone who can slay that well alongside a very heavy objective game, you're onto a winner.
And we're talking about Kuhlect, and rightfully so. Last year on SSG, for many people, including me, he was a very close second behind Bound, not just to get the Rookie of the Year, but this kid is talented. He's a real powerhouse, and you can see exactly why Sentinels have picked him up.
He's actually the second highest in flag caps at the moment throughout this entire tournament, and I wouldn't have expected that from a player like Kuhlect when I traditionally look at what he does and how he plays the game. But when you look at the Sentinels roster, maybe that's where he fits in, because when they first formed, I think they were all trying to work out, where do we really go? Where are the pieces to this puzzle? Who's going to be doing what? What roles do I have to do? Even though Halo Infinite is not as strict as maybe previous Halos when it comes to definitive roles, they all seem to have now started to find their right path, and it is looking really good. They showed great promise yesterday in some of their pool play matches. However, this is going to be a big test against FaZe Clan, and I think every gentleman on that screen knows full well that FaZe are not going to be an easy match whatsoever here.
All to do for FaZe. Cannot be looking past this one. As we load in then, once more, Sentinels have a tough task, probably the toughest one they've had all tournament long. It might be bittersweet for LethuL in the trenches with these boys for over 7 years. And Renegade playing against two former teammates. But they've built this roster not just to get top 4s and top 3s. FaZe want to win championships, and it all starts here.
Right off the rip, you've got to make sure you're prioritizing either the overshield or the rockets. You could try and do both, and I tell you what, it's a triple kill for Nick to start things off today. And I am very impressed with how Nick has been approaching this tournament. He's actually in the top 5 damage dealt on Capture the Flag throughout this LAN so far, and you can see why. If he's playing with such aggression, he's getting hold of these rockets. He gives a great opening for FaZe at the start of this game.
3 dead for FaZe. Sentinels moving in, Kuhlect flag in hand. You spoke about it. He was going to get his hands on it. He gets it on the move. Already gone bottom base, opting to go runway with this time, and still has some overshield to play with, Dan.
Always a different route when you do go down towards Sword, and there is going to be cover though. Spartan and LethuL are picking up kills. Spartan having the sniper rifle means that there is a real chance here for Sentinels, as long as Kuhlect can just avoid any nades being backed off of Pit here, and he will manage to start things off. What a start this is for Sentinels, exactly what the Doctor ordered.
Boy, oh boy, Sentinels have come to play here on Saturday. Frosty though, peeling wigs, finds one, make it two, Spartan will go down. Kuhlect manages to get a trade, but it's all four dead now for Sentinels, and all of a sudden, Frosty's starting to dictate the pace of play.
And this is one thing we will always credit FaZe for, is how well they respond when they do see something like that, a quick, hot fire start from their opponents, and Frosty, maybe leading the way with the sniper rifle, has the opportunity to now really create an opening for the team.
Kuhlect's gonna challenge, Kuhlect's gonna win, Sniper goes down. SnakeBite still has the flag in his hands, and we're all tied up. As quickly as you take the lead, as quickly as it can be taken away.
A very much different flag run, flag route that was far quicker as well for FaZe, and you've got to be efficient when it does come to Imperial flag. You've got to make sure you can push that flag into the areas so that you can support your team, but at the same time, speed can sometimes result in success, as now it's SnakeBite's turn with a sniper rifle.
SnakeBite looking to thread the needle there, will not connect onto KingNick, but it didn't need to. Gets the kill in the end. 4 shots to the back will result in a kill. Running this flag then, LethuL will get the better on this time, shuts him down. LethuL, with the help of Spartan, will secure 2 kills, and that was vital from him.
And we heard Wes talking about it on the desk. It's such an important series here for LethuL. You can only imagine what's going through his brain. For pro players, the series after you've been dropped from a team is always going to be an important one. And I'm sure he'll be looking to try and perform. SnakeBite gets taken down. Kuhlect will get that kill, but the rocket's perhaps still going to be usable. Maybe one left, as it's a bit of a scrap in the middle at the moment.
Renegade goes on the bridge. Up to go runway, but runs straight into a grenade. Frosty has got the overshield, just over a quarter of it left. Heat wave to play with. Looking to provide cover fire for Renegade. Ultimately doesn't need it in the end, and will go back for his sniper rifle, looking to play this one a little bit slower.
And you know, for all the talk on saying, well, how will LethuL feel? Is it going to be tough for LethuL? How are the rest of the 3 members on FaZe going to feel? Because suddenly there's that extra pressure of what goes wrong. What happens if your former teammate does beat you? And it adds a lot, as we see 3 members now down for Sentinels. Kuhlect the last remaining player, and Frosty, he's got great eyes on him, will connect with 1, but doesn't have a BR for the cleanup.
Kuhlect will be forced to back down, and that flag will get all the way out to long haul. KingNick will chase down SnakeBite, and Spartan with a grenade will stop the flag in his tracks, but Frosty's finding some faces now. Really starting to heat up with the heat wave. He's cooking. Triple kill for the Iceman.
And it might still go on. Yeah! Overkill! We switch over, but Frosty hits it. Spartan gets one through the visor, and now suddenly FaZe are starting to pop off.
Nick now taken down by Royal 2. Kuhlect on the sword nades, will get 1. Trades 2v2 on the map at the moment. Kuhlect down to no shields, but has got a sniper rifle now to play with. Looks to line up SnakeBite in the green box, but gets eliminated now. And it's all one-way traffic for the moment. It's all being played at Sentinel side of the map.
And obviously off the back of the overkill, we did see that cap go in, so FaZe now lead 2-1 here in a period. Sentinels have been kind of pegged back a little bit here. They're struggling to get out of their base. FaZe have now taken positions to watch over these sight lines, watch these spawns. A remote detonation finishes off Kuhlect. But KingNick is doing well at the moment to just frustrate FaZe a little bit in the base.
This game's been so fast-paced so far. It's a barn burner at the moment. We've already had 3 caps. Kills galore, overkills. It's got everything so far.
It's exactly what we wanted from this series. We wanted fast-paced, we wanted action, we wanted both teams at each other's throats. And even though it's a fast start for Sentinels and they were able to get that lead, ever since then, it has really been all FaZe as SnakeBite tries to take an angle, but LethuL takes down his former teammate.
Not only takes him down, but hits all 4 shots. Winning those 1v1s is LethuL at the moment. And they've been vital to keep Sentinels in the game. Rocket gets repulsed, that could have been huge. Scoops them up, can he get away? The answer is yes for now. Big moment for Kuhlect. Under bridge. Needs to carve a hole onto FaZe's side. Will miss with the rocket. Didn't need to connect in the end. Opts to go backwards this time though, opts to retreat.
Sentinels need Kuhlect back in that base once more. They need him pulling flags. But he has to get a few kills first, and he does listen to call-outs, goes back on himself, and that's great response time. Sign him up for the emergency services because he'd be there quick enough if you were in trouble, but Sentinels now starting to press their advantage a little bit. Are going to try and position themselves, but with KingNick going down, suddenly you find yourself in a 3 versus 4.
Vital Kuhlect stays alive here. Nick's already gone down. Repulses away from the blast radius of that grenade, but not enough. Still down to a sliver of shields, desperately trying to cling on to life. Frosty will spot him out, fires a couple of snipe shots, one will connect. And Kuhlect manages to just scamper away towards the BR. Flag will be pushed out and on the move. Stopped for a moment in its tracks. Looking for the bait and switch. Can Kuhlect and Spartan combine here to pick up the pieces? Outslides Renegade, completely unaware of that player right beside him, but it's going to be a trade. And right now, this flag stopped dead in its tracks.
Stopped dead, and there's a SnakeBite who's in the area to get the return as well. SnakeBite actually leading the amount of flag returns in this tournament so far. We talk about objective work. Usually it's about, how much you're holding the ball, how many flags do you pull, but actually, SnakeBite on flag returns has been pretty nutty so far, always putting his body on the line and taking those risks to ensure he sends that flag back to base.
Frosty has just been setting up residency in this sword area with the sniper rifle, finding faces.
And I really think that ever since we've had the introduction of this map and the introduction of Argyle, more snipers is a good thing for Frosty, right? You think about what he used to achieve in Halo 5 and how deadly he was and what he's been able to do on the likes of Livefire. Now there's more snipers available to him. He really has that chance to thrive, and we've already seen an overkill from him so far this game.
Just under 5 minutes then left to play in game number 1 of our quarterfinals. Frosty backs away. This is something we're seeing more and more often with Empyrean, Dan. Get a couple of kills, and if you don't have the pieces in the right place, back away and play your advantages.
Yeah, you don't need to rush it, especially if you're FaZe right now and you have the 2-1 lead. 4 minutes remaining is quite a lot of time, though, for Sentinels. So I don't think they'll be particularly panicked about this situation. First rocket will connect for Royal 2, and now it's a chance to press up with the rest of the squad. They know they're spawning over towards Snipe, so you just need to take the right angles, get the head glitches to work out in your favor, and it's a big double with the support from the rest of the team.
FaZe in the ascendancy at the moment. Let's have a listen in and see how they're managing things.
Hear you. Nice. Their first, two their first on hit. Yeah, one, there's two. One more. He's a beat down, he's beat down. Four dead still. One up now, left up. I'll take it two up now. That's it. Spawn their corners. Go see me. I'm good. Watch out those two. We destroy it. Yeah, you're good. We're good. They just won. Oh, good shit. Keep this up. They can finish right down. Good shit, guys. They're backing up. One I'm looking. We can bridge. Watch out. In green, KingNick. And then get me down long as well. Nice. I'm looking. The train top bridge on me. Our green wall. Can't see him, Matt. Our green one in. These guys are fucking terrible. Dead. You snipe at 5. I got ours, Brad. You got. No, you take it. No, I'm for the snipe. Yeah, I'm here, man. They're training on me. Yeah, I'm trying to look over you, Matt. You're solo, okay? Yeah, I'm probably gonna hit through long. I don't see Matt. You're gonna play for Matt heavy, I think. Yeah, I'm going through sword sniping, Matt. If you can buy me time.
Communication on point there, and a little bit of smack talk that we heard.
Yeah, I think it was Renegade, and I think he's probably the only one who is going to have that smack talk right now, but I will say the intensity was there for this FaZe roster. If you had any doubt about how much they want this, you heard it in the comms, as Sentinels were 4 dead. Frosty's now in the sword yet again. Can't connect with any of those snipes, so this is the time you back away, you let the team know, okay, I've not hit my shots, perhaps we have to be a bit more patient on this flagpole.
Frosty living in here. Just wondering if he's taking out an option to buy a mortgage, or is he renting from HCS here?
I think he can do what he likes with how he's been playing so far. He owns the entire map right now, but Kuhlect's got a sniper rifle of his own, so it's going to be a little bit of a snipe off. Frosty gets the first, and now does Kuhlect pop out to maybe try and take his head instead.
Kuhlect does back him up, but Spartan's on hand to pick up the pieces over towards the needles. Desperately trying to stay alive here, waiting for the help to come through. Will manage to pick up one on the SnakeBite with a well-placed plasma grenade. The experienced veteran lands right on top of it. Couple of rockets fired. LethuL picks up 2. Is this the opportunity for Sentinels to get a flag on the move?
Well, I did say it was a good map to start on for Sentinels. They didn't lose an Empyrean map at all throughout the qualifiers online. They did, however, have a difficult time against Optic Gaming when it was Slayer on this map, but on CTF they've been performing well on LAN. But now, 3-1 down, 1 minute 30 on the clock. Maybe one of their better game types could be going towards FaZe Clan if they don't start to get the ball rolling soon. It has to be kind of right here, right now, in these next 20 seconds, getting a flag on the move shows to have a real chance.
This is a chance, then an opportunity. KingNick off the respawn, cannot get caught unaware by Renegade with the commando. KingNick almost spins on him. All 4 dead for Sentinels, though. And now flag on the move. This one doesn't even have to get punched in. This is just an insurance policy.
Honestly, with a minute left, I think FaZe Clan know really that they've got game one pretty much locked up, secured in the bag, and it's been a fantastic watch on both sides. I was impressed with Sentinel's start, but FaZe's response, you could argue, even more impressive with especially Frosty's sniper work and how they've worked in tandem to push across to the other side of the map and get these flags moving so quickly and flawlessly every single time.
Royal 2 then. We'll find Kuhlect. Could be about to pick up LethuL. Teammates on hand. Spartan last man standing. Not for long. All 4 dead. KingNick's about to be the latest victim. No, he's not. He shuts it down and picks up a huge double kill, but it'll matter not.
Well, those kind of kills, they do matter a little bit because as you go into the next games, you're like, okay, I was able to get the BR shots. I wasn't allowing a triple kill to give the momentum to Frosty even more. As SnakeBite just waiting now, as it is at this point, just a little bit of a victory parade as we play out these last few seconds.
SnakeBite just sitting like a gargoyle on the box, and ultimately 3 go down and 3-1 to score. 2 FaZe. They draw first blood, they take the lead. Slow start, but they roar to life.
On arguably one of Sentinel's best maps and modes as well, so that's going to give FaZe great belief going into the rest of this series. But actually, I think one of the things about this FaZe roster is they haven't really shown much weaknesses in terms of maps and modes. One of the best when you look at qualifiers and you look at the stats, there was maybe one map and mode that they were struggling in. Everything else seemed pretty on point, and that's difficult to do with the amount of maps and modes we do have in the HCS. So FaZe really trying to put themselves in that question of winning a championship. Of course, they are favorites for a lot of people, but they still have to get past not just this Sentinels roster and whatever could wait if they're able to find a victory in this series.
Let's break it down to the eyes and ears of Sentinels. They had that hot start, but just couldn't maintain it. And they allowed FaZe to get right back into the game. You almost want a minute or two where you can catch your breath, but FaZe, they didn't allow that.
Well, you've got to remember that the very core of FaZe is, 3 members who have been together for, what, 6-7 years? And that chemistry is going to be there. That overkill was nuts, by the way, as we cut across and saw the flag cap at the same time. Frosty really popping off. For Sentinels, there's still a lot more learning going on. There's still a lot more gelling going on. But you look at that first flag cap and you're saying, okay, well, if they can do that consistently, if they can find a little bit more structure in the mid-game, there's no reason why they can't beat teams like this, but maybe that's something they are going to learn and develop as this tournament goes on. And it may not be perfect in this tournament, but when we start to look to future tournaments, I am liking what I'm seeing from the Sentinels roster. There's a lot of pieces there that are working.
Up next, Slayer on Aquarius. And speaking of Slayer, Dan, here's the stats. What's jumping off the page for you?
Well, I think Frosty has shown evidently he is an incredible Slayer so far this tournament, but LethuL, one of the things he was criticized for an entire year was his slaying ability, but showing he is currently above 1, and that's exactly what you need, putting plenty of damage down per game. Only short, 400 per game than Frosty, and you consider what Frosty's been doing, I'd say that LethuL has been stepping up, maybe did get that fire lit underneath him, and we'll have to see whether in game 2 he can be the key factor for getting Sentinels back into this series.
This next game, Slayer Aquarius, you're the stat man. You give me win-loss ratios and all sorts of different things that has me scratching my head. What have you got for me here?
You can continue to scratch your head, but I will say again, it's another very confident game type for Sentinels throughout qualifiers. They didn't lose it. Haven't played it yet on LAN. Neither of these teams have played it yet on LAN, so this is going to be the first time, of course, at this tournament with this roster. We did see FaZe lose it a couple of times throughout the qualifiers to a couple of different teams, and I think that maybe gives the edge slightly to Sentinels when you look at stats, but from what I've seen so far, you'd have to go with FaZe, right? You'd have to suggest FaZe are on top. But I'm looking at players like Kuhlect, right? Like Spartan, these guys that could just make that difference. The guys that can really just come into a game and absolutely destroy when you need them to.
Is this an opportunity for Sentinels to get back into the series? Or will FaZe double the lead? We're on board with Frosty, who hit that insane overkill. He's got eyes for the sizzle sticks immediately before heading down bottom middle. No Slays to talk about for the moment. That's soon to change. The SnakeBite picks up the camouflage, and all 3 make it 4. Go down for Sentinels, the worst possible start.
Well, we saw the incredible start in game 1 from Sentinels, the exact opposite now, and it's going to be FaZe Clan in the ascendancy. They've got complete control, and they've caught the spawns of Sentinels over towards that engine side, so now they can collapse on them. You can see they've got a 2-2 split at the moment. They're going to make sure someone's top mid to watch the cross, and now the boys are heading in. FaZe looking for blood.
Here comes the heavy. SnakeBite Frosty's doing work elsewhere, double kill for him, but Sentinels have managed to get a couple of kills of their own. Kuhlect's gonna try and do as much damage as he can for KingNick to clean up on, but Renegade's on hand and SnakeBite wisely backs away.
Really good bait and switch there from SnakeBite and Renegade. I think these two have been working in tandem so successfully so far in the tournament. It seems to be every aspect of FaZe right now is clicking. And even though they have shown moments so far where perhaps there's been a little bit of roughness around the edges, as soon as that starts to get polished out, I wonder, are we looking at a FaZe roster who could be that next championship winning team to rival Optic Gaming and what they were able to achieve?
A 10 kill lead. Camo the pop in just under 30 seconds. Two members of Sentinels positioned over on this Carbine side. KingNick fires over a couple of shots, but ultimately his shields are not looking in great nick at the moment. But FaZe really controlling this one. Keeping Sentinels right where they want them, to predicting the spawns, making them spawn where they want.
It's also just being proactive, right? Taking the initiative, you see the spawns and then you collapse on them. You take your advantages when they're there and available to you. Camo's going to be up, so it's an even bigger chance for this to be an extended lead. A couple of lost members on Sentinels off spawn. I think they're panicking a little bit because they haven't really been able to find any sort of structure so far. Every time they spawn, FaZe have just been breathing down their necks and they've made it very difficult for Sentinels to have any sort of thought process.
Back-to-back camouflages for FaZe, back-to-back camouflages for SnakeBite. What can he do with it? Three members of Sentinels faced up with him. He manages to get a trade, two go down a piece. Not the kind of value he would have liked, but damage control will say that was good enough considering it was a 3v2. 24-8 here. This is absolutely dominant and FaZe are running away with it.
I think there was a lot of people when they looked at the likes of Frosty, the likes of SnakeBite, LethuL, and they said, how are these guys not winning championships consistently considering what they did in Halo 5? And I think that maybe has led to the change, and it's so unfortunate that you see a dynasty having to make a change, but unfortunately sometimes that's how things happen. You move on, you make the changes, you try and find a new up-and-coming talent, and that is Renegade. Renegade is where these players have put all their bets on. They think he's the next big deal, right? They think he is going to be the guy that can take them to the top. And certainly so far, Renegade has impressed this tournament. He doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon as LethuL tries to make it a double, does not find the double. But Sentinels still find themselves, what, 23 behind here. This is looking rough.
Something you touch on briefly as well. In competitive esports across the board, there's no room for sentiment. Your career as a pro player is fleeting. You don't have that much time. You want to win as much as you can, make as much money as you can. And it's just business sometimes. These four players are obviously the best of friends at times. They won 2 world championships, but sometimes it just comes down to, we have to make a change because it's just not working.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think we've been there as players ourselves, and you know how difficult a decision it is to make, and I wouldn't want to be the ones in the shoes who has to make those decisions. And you can only sympathize for those who are on the receiving end, but at the same time, it is business. You want to be the best team in the world, and FaZe Clan find themselves 39-15, make it 40-16. We're looking at a spectacular here, I think, Shurs. Sentinels just haven't been able to get the ball rolling at all so far, and mainly that's just down to how FaZe have been collapsing on them.
What has Spartan got then? Commando and camouflage. It's a long, long road back, perhaps too far. Not enough fuel in the tank. Maybe one eye on game 3 already. But we can even talk about Spartan, how he had a tumultuous time last year, and has he finally found his forever home on this Sentinels roster?
Well, you even saw tweets in the qualifiers from Spartan saying, we've not quite gelled yet, we're not quite getting there, as you shouldn't be expected to. It's not just going to click straight away. Sure, there are some teams who have that honeymoon phase where you look incredible online, but then even that will start to drop off a little bit. Sometimes it's better to build like Sentinels are, where they had an average to somewhat okay performance online. As soon as we got to LAN, they were very impressive with what we saw yesterday. And even though this game looks pretty dire, game 1 wasn't that bad for them either. As long as you can take things away, take positives away from these games, you can build, you can improve. And in the end, you just have to make sure you are sticking together and getting through any tough times.
Sometimes Slayers can just go this way. If you don't get the weapons and the power-ups, it can get out of control, and it can get out of control very quickly. And when you lose 2 spawn wipes right off the bat, it really makes this a difficult task to come back from. But Kuhlect picks up 2, LethuL with another. 45-26 here. Just trying to avoid the steak dinner.
It's not been the most fun of games for KingNick, 2-14 at the moment. Even though he was leading damage, or one of the top 5 leading damage players when it comes to capture the flag damage, clearly not having a game to remember here, as we are going to see the 28th kill go in. Sentinels having a little bit more success now off their spawns. They've kind of stopped the FaZe control a little bit. Whether FaZe got a little bit sloppy because of the lead that they were able to gain, that remains to be seen. But only 2 more kills required, and this is going to game 3.
I have a theory about KingNick and why he's got so many deaths. I think I have the same problem myself, as my hitbox is bigger than everybody else's. It's the only thing that makes sense. But we're currently now 49 to 29. 1 more kill required for FaZe, double the lead. Is Spartan to be the latest victim? KingNick will keep him alive for the moment. But ultimately, it is going to be the steak dinner. FaZe lead by 2.
It wasn't necessarily the prettiest of watches if you're a Sentinels fan or a Sentinels player. However, if you're a fan of FaZe, it's all good signs. It's all leading to building towards what? The winner's semi and potentially a winner's final, potentially a match against the likes of Optic, SSG. They're still not quite there. There is still another hurdle to go, right? You've got to make sure you get the 3rd map done and dusted. But considering these were the 2 maps I said were the most likely Sentinels would find victory, because we've seen weaknesses from FaZe, when you look at qualifiers and you look at game types that maybe have been somewhat bad, that's the games that FaZe would then work on, because they are a team that know which game types they're good at and know which game types they need to work on. And it does seem like they did go back to the drawing board with a couple of these, because Aquarius Slayer, they looked so different when we saw them online. They were not able to push their advantages like they did today. They were not collapsing in that same way. Sometimes they were leaving one player maybe to get caught out with some BR fire across the map, but there was no weakness that I saw there in Aquarius Slayer from FaZe. They knew exactly how they wanted to approach that game, and they absolutely nailed it.
You speak about FaZe looking a little bit different than the way they did online. They looked a different team than they looked yesterday. They seem to have found like an extra gear that perhaps we thought would be there, but we expected it yesterday.
They do seem to be growing every time they're on our screens, and it's kind of terrifying for the rest of the field, it has to be said. But next up is going to be Stronghold's Recharge, and this is when the series layout starts to get better for FaZe Clan, and if it's already 2-0, that's when it gets worse for Sentinels. We didn't see FaZe Clan drop Stronghold's Recharge throughout qualifiers. They've already won it in a very impressive fashion so far this tournament as well. So we're starting to look at a potential 3-0 here in our winners quarterfinals, excuse me. As for Sentinels, it's one of their worst game types when it comes to the qualifiers. They did struggle a little bit, but maybe, again, like I was saying, they've looked at the VODs, they've looked at what they could do differently, and perhaps they've worked on it here.
And as we head into this game 3, who is your player that can make the difference on either team? Who's going to be the X factor?
Well, LethuL and Frosty are the 2 players who are leading in damage and strongholds across the entire tournament right now. So both of those guys are who I'm going to be looking at. They have been absolutely shredding. They may not be the ones who are capping the strongholds. Actually, I think LethuL has one of the least cap rates of strongholds in the tournament so far. I think that SnakeBite was even making a joke about the fact that LethuL, you just have to put your foot in for a little second.
I think he's allergic to it.
And you can get a cap, but LethuL says, nope, I'm staying away, that's your job. You do it, SnakeBite, and SnakeBite says, okay, I'll do the objective work again. On the other side, I mean, that man on your screen, Spartan, I always enjoy watching Spartan play Halo Infinite, because I think that he always has that pop-off potential. And if he does start to get the ball rolling, right, if he does just explode and starts to hit some maybe 6 shots with a sniper rifle when he gets loud, that will give so much confidence to this Sentinels team. They need that going into a game 3, right? They need something to just give them a little bit of belief, like, this series is not over yet. We're not going to be pushovers, and we can get back into things. Maybe it just requires that one player to have that big moment.
And we've seen Spartan throughout his career have those pop-off moments, be that spark for his team to roar them back into a series. And they need him here.
And he certainly does roar as well.
Oh,
he is one of the loudest and proudest players to have on your team. And you look at the experience on this roster as well. I mean, there's so much of it. Kuhlect, arguably the least experience, of course. He's going to be learning as he goes with how much he's progressed throughout Halo Infinite. It's been a pleasure to watch, and I'm very excited to see how his story continues throughout this season. But this Sentinels roster, this is their last chance then to try and get back into this series before we look at a potential 3-0.
Our FaZe about to put an exclamation point on this series and make a statement to every other team left in this competition. Or can Sentinels draw one back and build upon it? This is a massive game. Sentinels lose this, and they will be in the elimination bracket and just one series away from going home. It's all about to get cooking now, and we're on board with Renegade.
Very intrigued to see the starting strategy here for FaZe, because they've tried a few different things throughout online qualifiers, and Renegade does like to get the shock. It does look like, again, he's going to be trying to prioritize that, but not too quickly, because he knows this is when the nades come through. Depending on what side you spawn, you need to be knowing where you're going to be banking those nades, but eventually Renegade does get it, and that's why he always looks to try and pick up the shock.
Shock stuck in 2 smoking barrels at the moment. What's Renegade got? Looking for those spawners. One pops out, isn't able to find the face, just a pixel away from connecting with the visor. Backs away though, A and B firmly in FaZe control. As that grenade soars through bat ledge, fizzes off a wall, and ultimately does very little damage. SnakeBite will go down, but not before getting a trade, and that's going to mean 3v3 on the map. Renegade changes things once again. Such a massive impact at any time he gets a power weapon in his hands.
I mean, you saw the stats that popped up on your screen briefly as well, averaging 20 kills per Strongholds game so far. And even though they've not played a ton of Strongholds so far in this tournament, it's still impressive even if it was one, right? Just making sure you are hitting those 20s. I know it's been a couple of games for them, so the average is very impressive indeed, and it looks like he's going to try and do that once more with an early start, which is very much forcing Sentinels to try something a little bit different here with their rotation. You can see they're all working together to try and go through control. And maybe they can catch out Frosty, who's on his own, but Renegade is supporting from a distance.
You can see him firing that shot. Thinking about repositioning just to keep them guessing. 3 dead for Sentinels again. Very little movement. They need to make inroads, because right now FaZe are looking far too comfortable.
Yeah, and this is all just, you know, textbook recharge Strongholds at this point. You get control of A and B, you force the spawns over towards Long Haul or C, making sure you're watching the crosses, watching the angles, force Sentinels to do something a little bit different, and then as soon as you have got those kills, you do it all over again, right? You've just got to make sure that you don't allow Sentinels to too comfortably walk into A, but if they do walk into A like they have done, then you flip it, and then you get C, and you do it all over again on the other side of the map, as Renegade is being an absolute terror at the moment.
Renegade just doing so much damage, somehow survives this onslaught. They got A, but he done such damage in the process. Meant the rest of his team could pick up C. 3 dead once more. KingNick last man standing, waiting for his team, trying to control C.
Spawns over at C, they flip back towards A. Again, absolute textbook. It's been perfection so far for FaZe. Sentinels have not had an answer. LethuL going to contest over at Glass, but his teammates are going to control, so maybe they're going for some sort of split push now. But again, you can get punished for that very quickly as Renegade finally goes down, but not without getting 6 kills on his way. As now SnakeBite starting to show us what is made of with a commander.
Double kill for the General. Killing frenzy for the General. And 3 dead go Sentinels once more. They've almost got control of B, but just like that, it gets reset. And that's the difference now with this team. You can afford to have a slow game because someone will pick up the slack somewhere.
All right, how far can this FaZe roster go, I think is the conversation we have to start heading towards now. They're evidently going to be one of the top teams in this tournament. SnakeBite, confidence oozing through him right now. He was happily challenged. LethuL picks up the kill, but SnakeBite was not backing down from that fight. Optic Gaming, the reigning world champions. We saw the ring ceremony, right? They were incredible last year, but this team, this FaZe Clan roster, has been made to take them down. The targets are very much on Optic's back.
They've already come in here, the world champions, as the 2nd seed. FaZe already trying to upset them and take their throne. And with performances like this, Optic cannot look past them as SnakeBite gets a running riot and a triple kill here in the winners quarterfinals.
And this man is putting on a clinic right now. For all the talk of his objective work, he says, I can do the dirty stuff as well. I can get the kills. I can be the main slayer if I want. He can do whatever he likes on this team, it would seem. Unreal performance, not just from SnakeBite, but this entire FaZe roster. 210 to 0. Are we going to be witnessing a 250 to 0? It's not something you'd expect in a winners quarterfinals, but with how FaZe have been playing so far, it's definitely within the realms of possibility.
I think those SnakeBite hats might be getting an increase in sales, if I'm being totally honest, because they seem to be buffed all of a sudden. 17 kills and 2 deaths. 3 dead again for Sentinels. They just can't get into the game.
Suddenly they get a trip cap. They force them over towards B now. So this is the other area where you can start to force spawns. As it's 240 to 0, but Sentinels are giving themselves a last-ditch attempt to try and get some points on the board. A and C being taken, and they will secure a point, so it's not going to be the worst situation in the world here. But now FaZe, they regain control once more.
Sentinels have won, but it's a little more than a consolation as all four go down once more, and FaZe continue to score, putting Sentinels in an absolute blender.
It has been one of the hardest performances to watch if you look at Sentinels, because they've never been able to escape. FaZe Clan have dominated Game 3, dominated this series, and they are on a clear warpath and have their eyes firmly set on a championship.
There are a few better ways to win a series than a clean sweep against the caliber of player across them. Sentinels are far better than we just seen, but FaZe made them look distinctly average.
Fist bumps all around though, and that's exactly what you want to see. As for Sentinels, it's not the end of the road for them. They drop to the elimination bracket, where I still think they could cause a lot of a ruckus down there. I've mentioned it a few times, there are pieces of the puzzle that are starting to be put together for this Sen roster now, and I truly believe top 6, top 4, very much a possibility, if not further, if they start to gel as the tournament goes on. There are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be maybe difficult in that elimination bracket, everyone fighting for their lives. But on the other side, for FaZe Clan, they're going to start thinking about Optic Gaming, they're going to start thinking about SSG, they're going to start thinking about getting a championship as we get confirmation of those 3 games. It wasn't the complete sweep of a 250 to 0 in the end. At least Sentinels did get that point, so they're not going to go down in any sort of history books. But boy, was that a commanding and impressive performance.